Kia ora tātou, no mai haere mai. Welcome to OANZ's first webinar for 2026. It's our great pleasure to introduce you today to Matt Scarf. The title on the screen is Matt's Research, which we're going to be talking about. A little bit about myself. I'm Brendan Hoare, and I'm working with OANZ both in a strategic role, and particularly on the GE issue. I've been doing that for the last 18 months or so. And a little bit of an outline of today's webinar. There's not too many rules, but the key thing is that you can ask questions in the Q&A. That's at the bottom right in the middle. You can also raise your hand. I'll be looking after the raise hand, and Lou, who's OANZ's comms manager, she'll be looking after the Q&A and sort of assessing people's comments and questions, which we can direct to Matt. And what we're going to be looking at is about 20 minutes of presentations. And then we're going to open that up and have 20 minutes of Q&A and questions and comments that people might want to make. Now, we've got over 147 people who registered for today's webinar, which is awesome. And it's really good to see such a variety of people. We've obviously got lots of growers and farmers, but we've also got academic communications, we've got media, we've got teachers, we've got commercial people in finance, state-owned enterprises, ministries, and it's a great pleasure to have Minister Mark Patterson with us as well. Thank you, Mark, for taking the time to come out and be with us today. We've also got ODPG, who's one of our sponsors for the work on GMO this year. Great to have ODPG there. Thank you very much for that. So, Matt, this is my chance just to hand over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself and the program you did and what makes you sort of tick.
Yeah, great. Firstly, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here, and yeah, cool opportunity and a pretty exciting topic. Okay, first, I think it's probably important that I share that. Firstly, I'm not a farmer, so I'll put my hand up and say that. And also, I'm not an academic. So I guess what we're going to be going through a wee bit is a little bit of my research and my report, and it's a first time for me. But yeah, really exciting in the same regard. I'm a father of 3 young children who keep me pretty busy, and I've got an incredibly supportive and wonderful wife that I guess has maybe some sore shoulders from carrying the kids over the last wee while of doing this report. But yeah, it's resulted in, I think, quite something that I'm proud of for sure. Talking about the topic and organics and that in New Zealand and my connection to it. My journey has been quite a recent journey. So, as I said, not a farmer, but the connection has been brought forth through a pretty serious health scare within the family, to be honest, and me witnessing firsthand what the impact of clean, natural food and what you put in your body and the impact of that. So, why this matters to me is, yeah, I guess I've just developed this real interest, somewhat of a passion, and yeah, just this desire to keep asking more questions and learning. The opportunity came through what you call Kellogg Rural Leadership Program. So it's a program that gets the next group of leaders in our ag sector and make sure they've got the tools and the confidence to ask the hard questions and drive the sector, agricultural, food and fibre, in the direction that we need it to go for New Zealand. So Farmlands put me through that. They provided a sponsorship because it does cost a wee bit. And within that, the goal is at the end of it, you have a project of a topic of choice, and you produce a report that hopefully has some findings that are useful for our sector. And obviously for me, it was the organic sector.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. So look, let's get straight into it. Can you just give us an overview? And Matt's agreed just to give an overview of the 5 key findings and 5 recommendations that came out of your work. And I've had a chat, obviously, prior with Matt to this in preparation, and it's really good to see people from the, what I would call sort of from the outside in, coming in and having a look at our sector and a clean set of eyes. And I think we'll find Matt's findings really illuminating. And of course, what we'll also provide is a link to Matt's research. So thanks a lot, Matt. Over to you. And we're giving Matt about 10 minutes, and then we're going to start some questions. Thank you, Matt. Go for it.
Setting the tone with the timing already. Thanks, Brendan. All right. So just quickly, guys, my research approach was a literature review. So that's previously published papers, semi-structured interviews. So I had 10 interviews with experts in the organic sector, in agriculture. Also, there were some scientists, organic farmers, organic resellers, a good variety of opinions, asking them about what they think the impact of New Zealand moving away from GE free would be on the market that they play in. So my key findings for starters, this is just the titles. I'll dive into these quickly, but yeah, so that's what we've got. I'm not going to say them out loud because I can show you right now what they are. So why it matters. Is New Zealand missing the wave? So one of the biggest findings I had was the forecast for the organic global sector and the size of potential increase by 2033. So there's not many industries out there that don't have tech linked to them that result in you talking an increase like that. New Zealand, so I think we hit 1.18 billion, which is approximately 1% of the total agricultural market for us. When an interesting little side fact there is our organic land percentage or hectares that are currently used for organics is only 0.6%. So you can see, you could argue punching above its weight in that regard. So we've got global organic growth. So year on year, how much is the globe increasing with its organic market? 14% approximately. An interesting fact, in New Zealand, it's only increasing about 8%. So what does that say? It definitely asks the question of what do we need to do to bump ourselves up to that 14% mark? And and are we going to miss this opportunity that's obviously happening outside our shores? And what can we do to make sure we get involved with that? Brand identity conflict and premiums at risk. There was and OANZ had a big part in the research of assessing the value around the clean green brand, and if that's going to change, and what would be the results, what would be the on-flow effect of New Zealand's clean green brand or GE free status changing. So the research that I found said that on average, so after all the different whether it was kiwi fruit, whether it was UHT milk or whatever, it landed at an average of 39% increase for organic. So naturally, if the change in GE free status impacts the brand that our international trading partners feel that we have, then that's going to potentially impact our trade with them, and therefore flow down and impact the profits of our organic farmers and organic market. Coexistence and the need for clear rules. So a lot of you are obviously a lot more across the space than I am, as I'm obviously recently looking into it. But we know the risks and pollen drift and seed movement. When we're talking about these risks, we need to mitigate them, and mitigation costs money, and it costs time, and it costs effort, and all of those things obviously argue or debate whether this business is going to be profitable at the end of the day. If our revenue is not increasing but our costs are increasing, then that net profit line at the bottom gets smaller and smaller. There is also the uncertainty and the increased risk, which is the contamination piece, something called adventitious presence, which is the unplanned non-organic matter within an organic product, and that happening without specific effort or not a specific action. If this is to a point that it's above a certain level, then the decertification conversation could come into play. Scale. New Zealand, we are, if you compare ourselves to some of the larger countries around the world, we're a small fish, but we're very, very good at what we do. A contamination incident could have serious impact on currently as we saw, it's 1% of our agricultural market, only 0.6% of our hectares are being used. So if something happened, you could argue we're not quite the big giant that we hope to be. But you could also, does that make us more vulnerable to something like that? More organic producers equal more scale. So the idea is that you wouldn't want to be promoting people and to transition from conventional to organic, to therefore and increase the scale, which will increase with profitability across the country and the outfits that are sending that product overseas, but also the profitability will flow back through and may even give us access to bigger markets that we currently do not have. So you could argue there's a whole snowball effect. Fill a container and the opportunities really, really improve and increase. So that was the key findings. Do you want me to fly through the recommendations too, Brendan?
Go for it. Thank you.
So clear contamination rules. There's a 0.9% sort of averaged out. When I said adventitious presence before, other countries have sort of allowed that. So a 0.9% of non-organic matter can be included in this organic product, and it still get the stamp or the certification stamp. So we really need to know exactly what that is. When I say we, I mean New Zealand. So then the organic farmers and the people that are going to need to make sure that this is a box that's ticked, we need to know exactly what those rules are from the beginning, because that may result and require changes in operations or changes in ways of doing things. But the expectation needs to be clear. The organics bill, obviously this is something that has been going on for years and years and years, and the potential for us to get that confirmed and consolidated, and then for the roll-on effect of equivalency agreements would hopefully, this is sort of my thought process around it. But if we had a quality and solid equivalency agreements with big trading partners, would this reduce the requirement of us needing to have such a reliance on this brand, which you could argue we're not always in control of, which I'll talk about in a second. Develop a robust transitions program. So when I say transitions program, I'm talking about you've got your conventional farmer. Then you could argue there's a regenerative farmer, and maybe if you wanted to put it in a line, they could sit in the middle, and then you've got your certified organic. And a transitions program that illuminates where someone is on that trajectory. And if they know where they are, then they know what they would need to do to therefore become X, from conventional to regenerative or regenerative to certified organic. And if we can really establish that, like the US have done with their TOPP program, I think is a great one we could maybe steal with pride, if you will. I felt there's a big opportunity there. Government support. I did a bit of a deep dive rabbit hole into the EU commissions and the farm to fork situation over there, and how they've got a goal of hitting 25% of the agricultural land to be farmed as organic, and them they actually offered up what's it called when you get a discount or something, Brendan? I've lost it. I lost the thought. When you get like a reward for doing something, a financial reward, but I understand that hasn't really gone exactly to plan. So my thought was, well, what are the current I guess structures within our government space that we could leverage to therefore help promote our certified organic. Maybe there might be small producers that are selling their own brand, or link them to the bigger producers, and just making that easy and not costing us a lot. Because don't get me wrong, everyone wants a subsidy, was the word I was looking for before. Controlling the brand narrative. So if we do not tell the world who we are, if we moved away from being GE free, if we don't tell the world, okay, yes, we're doing this, but this is who we are, then it's going to be up to them to decide who we are, I guess, right? So my thoughts around this were, well, it needs to be a joint effort. I think you go back to 2000. It's in my research, but when Tourism New Zealand had the clean green brand, like how long has that lasted for? What's the new 2026 version of that, and who needs to be involved in it? And we need to be ahead of it. And the last parts were, again, not an organic farmer, so there's probably a lot more work to do in these recommendations. But the more an organic farmer understands what GMOs are and what they require and what they can do and not do, will better place them to perform alongside or operate alongside. And know your local area. If you've got some farmers in your local area that are doing that would be doing something like this, then understand and working alongside them. Being friends would be better than being enemies, was, I guess, some findings that I had. That's
Brilliant.
pretty much it, Brendan.
Yep, that's a great summary. Thanks, Matt. Hey, just before, I've got a couple of questions before we open this up, and the timing was perfect. We're getting really close to opening it up. Because often when you do research like this and you commit to all the paper and then you publish it, and then sort of often a week or two later you go, oh boy, I wish I'd added something in, or there could be like an aha moment. Have you had any of that? What did you publish that's been buzzing around inside your head?
Well, one thing that's been buzzing was I didn't interview a lot of conventional farmers. And I think I regret doing that because I've been talking to more and more of them after the fact. And I've struggled to find, actually, I mean, I'm talking like 10 to 12, and just through the job that I have, I've struggled to find a whole lot that are actually saying that that there's a lot of benefit for them to move away from being GE free. So I feel like that could have been a component that I dived into a wee bit further, and it's I guess that was one point.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because it was going to be my next point, because the issues you raised, if you remove the word organic, it's what's best for New Zealand, like what is best for New Zealand. Do you think that's transferable?
Well, yeah, I actually was listening to I won't name the podcast, but it was a reputable podcast with a very reputable farmer on there, and he had just recently traveled to Europe for an ag-related event, big event, and some of the commentary that and he's not an organic farmer whatsoever, was, I don't think so, was that we don't actually realize how many of our farmers are actually not a really low input. And he talked about the highlands down in the South Island, and the input that those guys are doing is so minimal. We just need to communicate this better in a whole country, from a whole country's perspective. And in the other flip side to why this conversation was interesting from him was he was talking to international, like high level representatives, and they were talking about us being this island nation that had this green green brand, and that we should protect it. We're also advantaged by the fact that we're an island nation and we don't have anything getting forced upon us in that regard. And that was just, it was quite illuminating to hear from someone who maybe you go back 10 years would not have had that approach or thought process. And they were actually fighting the battle when someone said, oh, no, organics like that, that's just a bit too hard. And he came back and said, well, it's actually not. And we just need to be more aware of it. It's different to what we thought about it 10, 15 years ago. So I think there is a big opportunity there, Brendan.
Cool. Now, we've got one person in Q&A, and that's going to get ready with her question. So just to remind everybody, the Q&A is in the down the bottom. That's where you can raise your hand, and we have one in the Q&A, and we have a raised hand from Annette. But before we go there, I just want to sort of quickly summarize what I heard Matt say and is in his paper, particularly in the recommendations, right? We need clear government pathway forward and support. We need to fast track the regulation from inception till proposed completion, 18 years, 18. It's remarkable. So yeah, we could sort of put that on fast track. And the idea of organic being integrated into existing systems, I think, is really, really important. and the control of the national narrative around, who we are as a nation and our proposition, and how organic fits into that for everybody to benefit from, and the ability for people to be able to actually transition at their own space and time across towards organic. So, Annette Freegard, you get your chance. You're the first person with a question to Matt, please. And just one thing before we go into that. These are questions, not statements. So I know it's election year and people might be dying to say that, but no, let's keep some questions to Matt. Annette.
Can I just mention, because I need to allow Annette to talk, so I'll do that in 1 second. I've got to apologise because the chat function is not actually working in this webinar, so we only have the Q&A. So if you do have any questions or any feedback for Matt, please pop it into the Q&A. And Annette, you've got your hand up now, so I'm going to, unless that's a mistake, I'm going to allow you to talk so you can ask your question directly to Matt. So
She's
Annette,
on mute.
are you there, Annette? Do you want to unmute? Hello, Annette.
Bottom left hand. Annette.
Okay, maybe we'll skip Annette and we'll go.
I think she's just taken it off mute.
Okay.
Are you there, Annette?
Okay.
We'll maybe come back to Annette. Does anybody else? I can't imagine. I've got 70 people in the room. Oh, you're back, Annette? No. Are there any other questions that people might have? Just raise your hand, please.
I can see that there is a comment in the chat. Thanks, Matt, for the talk. I'm interested in the adventitious presence. Was there any before and after analysis for other countries that have adopted the use of GM plants on organic price penalties? And if so, what was that penalty they incurred? Conversely, how many other countries adopting GM crops would it take to give us an even bigger price premium? There's two questions there, so let me just get my head around the first one. Was there any adopted GM plants, organic price penalties? I didn't stumble upon any specific price penalties, so I can't answer that one. I guess, Jack, with the how many countries adopting GM crops would it take to give us a bigger price premium? The only example to talk to that I had was I had a very brief look into this. Was a lot of research crammed into a short amount of time, so there's definitely an opportunity to dive into these further. Was Canada, and that was the part that confused me a little bit and deserves more investigation, more of a look. Is most of the countries that I saw had a 0.9% acceptance for the adventitious presence, but Canada took a different approach, and they were at 5%, which I did therefore see that they do have GE farms. They do have GMO farms, to the point that 1 in every 5 were, or 20% of their agricultural land was GM. So, it's a valid question. If more countries push that adventitious presence up from 0.9%, because I don't think I didn't find exact evidence that it could be done with a 0% marker and you could still operate at a certified organic space. So if more countries head in the direction that Canada have currently taken with a 5% threshold, there could be an opportunity for us to grow for sure.
That does. I had quite a discussion with Matt on that. That does deserve a much bigger point. Hey, Matt, I'm just thinking there's no. Oh, we've got another question coming in the Q&A.
Jack's asking, I can't see how to unmute. You can't unmute because this is a webinar. If you want to talk, you need to put your hand up and I can just say, I can allow you to talk. I give you the permission.
So you need to raise your hand and then Lou will permit you to talk. Hey, while Jack's sorting that out, do you want to go back to the slide you had spare, Matt? Because I think there's a detailed one that Matt had that is interesting, I think, because there is, if people just give us a bit more time while people.
Cool. Should I jump to it now?
Yeah, the next one.
So this was a little bit on the Canada case study. So as you can see on the left-hand side, 2.2% of their land is currently farmed as organic, and 21.2% is farmed as GMO. So they were nearly the highest, second to Brazil. So heavily vested in GMOs. Also, their labeling is quite different to what we have here. They have non-GMO and GMO labeling is no different. Okay. What's really interesting is that there's been a huge domestic market demand and growth within Canada. I talked about the 5% adventitious presence. So in the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, that's grown from 6.4 billion to 9 billion, which is it's a significant increase. During that time period, New Zealand's exports has increased by 50%, and during that time period, there were no new organic producers that started producing organics, which for me raised the question of, if there's a market that's growing as much as it is in Canada, wouldn't there be a real opportunity to start producing more internally? And why have there not been as many people say, yep, I'm keen, I'm going to transition over, and I can see just the financial benefit, right? Or the looking at what the future could return. So that definitely raised some questions. There were Brendan and I had a brief chat, and there was a question about the validity, I guess, of the 9 billion, and was any of that the likes of a country like New Zealand exporting to Canada and then Canada exporting that to the US as a diverted channel maybe. But either way, I feel like this deserves the fact that they have a 5% adventitious presence. Is that because they're forced to? And is the question that the farmers just see too much risk? There is arguably too much adventitious presence around in the rural communities that I can't guarantee that I'll get that, even with 5%, that I'll get that certified stamp.
Cool.
Deserves
Thanks.
a whole other bit of research.
Questions. Thanks for that. Now, there's a couple of questions, one from Alan Richardson, and it says that in Australia, organic farmers are used as an example of successful coexistence with GE. Is this because of geography or lack of measurement, Matt?
It's a very good question. So are Australia organic farmers seen as a success story based on, if we're looking at percentages here, you can see 9.5%, 35.69 million hectares in organics. I didn't go down that rabbit hole. The only detail I did find was that I think a very large percent, maybe 80% of that land was related to outback. So there was no chemical being sprayed on it. It's just, I think it's mainly dry stock, just roaming free. A lot of that was that. So yeah, so it's a bit hard to compare. But on the flip side, obviously they've got a little bit of GMO, and there's a big comparison there. So yeah, I think we can definitely watch that space with really close eyes. Would be my only look.
Cool. Thanks, Alan. I think one of the ones for my research is that there's largely a lack of measurement, and no one in Australia really wants to know the answer, so they don't do the research. It might sound familiar to some people. Right, Alistair's got a really good question. Do you look into any other sectors which might experience more indirect effects from the loss of GE status, such as incoming international tourism?
I did not, but I think there is I know that the report that OANZ had supported did dive into that a wee bit and the potential impact there. For me, it was I had a 6-month period, and I had to try and make it as specific as I could, not going like you said before, Brendan, all of New Zealand. I just had to be a little bit more specific. My first time doing an academic project like this, I learned very quickly, the more general you go, the more lost you get. So, but no, the fact that we go back to clean and green, I think 2003, I could get that wrong, that tourism had a direct influence on all of that, right? And we only, so agriculture is a big piece for New Zealand, huge part of our GDP, and the opportunity in tourism is obviously there too.
Awesome, Matt. Look, so Karen's got a really good question too, which is a great segue across, and that there's basically no, capacity building or education. And a question is around what organic education remains in university. I went went through Lincoln with Bob Crowder. There was a single, in the 80s with mainstream education tending towards chemical and organic agricultural education. So is there anything at Lincoln or Massey for organic? Did you?
Don't know. Sorry. No, I can't answer that one. But yeah, I can even, I don't know, even if I don't know how you could, I guess, entice a educational outfit to look at going in that avenue. But if the core fundamentals of why people farm organic and that is not enough, then looking at the going back to the business opportunity, I think that is always hard to look past. And if there's real career opportunities following education, then maybe that's how you could leverage, or you could argue for the fact that the fact that the industry is going to potentially hit 650 billion by 2033, I think, is mind blowing.
Yeah, and just for the audience, Matt didn't do a PhD on the topic. It's a small study, so there's a lot of great questions.
6 months.
Well, all of these questions actually are a great question for the study, and there's no doubt we need more capacity building through all levels of education, and I see education institutes are here. So we got one from Logie. Is most of the GM agricultural and cropping situations overseas, or is it widely, is most of the GMO agriculture in cropping situations overseas, or is it widely used across all sectors? Meaning, is it big ag, commodities, soy, canola?
Yes. So you got canola, soybean, cotton, and maize. So those are the 4 main, and they make up. I mean, I don't have the number in front of me, but a huge percentage of. So if you just look at the countries there, so Argentina, they have a lot of that. Brazil, so yeah, South America. It's been through. That information is in the report, and you were right. It does fill up that space for sure.
Cool. We've got one from Simon Terry. Which other certifiers, apart from the non-GMO project, have committed to exclusion all gene edited and other new techniques of GMOs from being accepted?
Can you break that down for me, Brendan?
The non-GMO. So we're talking so inorganic, no GMO permitted. There's another label called non-GMO. Right. That is like for anybody can be a non-GMO certified product. We have them in New Zealand, for example. Lewis Road Creamery is one that uses non-GMO as a commitment into market. But so the question is, are there any others that have looked at doing that you're aware of in your research? Did you come across any others?
No, as I said, I was specifically focused on the certified organic space as opposed to the no GMO. I can commend your comment based on the fact that with this Canada case study, I had no GMO and GMO labeling were no different. That was as far as I was able to look. That was just a factor in terms of Canada's case study, but that wasn't part of the research project.
So did you look anyway about greenwashing and self-claim and any of that? Did that come into any of your work? Because that's sort of part of controlling the narrative, right?
Yeah. So I guess it's all about how far do you go and how deep do you go, and as I said, there's a lot of opportunity to dive right back in this and carry it all on again. The narrative and creating the story. I think there was some research in there that talks about how people, I can't remember the demographics or the consumer group, but having facts as opposed to just statements that really do resonate and actually drive consumer behavior now. People are they are looking for these percentages, and they're looking at the back of packets, food packets, and there is a reason why. I mean, I know we're just talking about organic, but that there's a forecast of the growth in this global industry is because that's consumer buying behavior is changing. People are prioritizing and valuing the putting clean quality fuel into their bodies. And I mean, there was some really cool examples. Countries like where are we? Well, I mean, in Europe there was
Matt,
I've had a conversation.
You had a personal experience, like I think your own personal experience is what's driving the market, and I really appreciate you sharing that. Like when people understand, what goes in here affects who I am and my health, and you've experienced that within your family, that light switches go on and the globe's going through that, right? So you're a sort of indicator of the rest of the world. Would that be fair?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably a good call.
All right, we've got Jack, and then I've got, I will start to wrap up. So Jack's got a question. Are there any other threats to organic or the New Zealand price premium for organic that are as important as contamination from GMOs?
I'm just going to reread that to myself. Are there any other threats to organic or New Zealand price premiums
other
organic
sort of
that are important as contamination of GMOs? So, I mean, an organic product has means that it is not A, B, C, and D, and it has been grown in these very specific environment following this process. I didn't dive into I did touch on pesticides a wee bit, but it was more on the side of GMOs. And very, very briefly, does a GMO require more or less pesticides? In one of the papers that I read, and the thought process was, well, if the GMO can be built in a way, wouldn't we want it to require less spray? And there was an example, I think it was India, it might have been Indian cotton, where that was the plan, but because it meant that they could plant more of it, that they ended up just spraying more because they had more hectareage that was now organic cotton. But so I don't have any.
Yeah. Hey, there's a swag of questions that've come in the last second, which is unfortunate because but I'm going to wrap up something. I'm going to sort of start to wrap this up. We'll pick them up and pass them on to Matt. But Logi's one is quite interesting because it was the way Logi's kind of saying, like, is government going to pick up on any of this research? So it's great that we've got members of Parliament and ministries attending. But I'm going to give you a chance to imagine the future here, Matt, because if you were in a position of managing, like if you could prioritize, if you were the minister or the prime minister even, what would you prioritize? What are the top 2 or 3 things you would prioritize? And I'll couple that, because if you read the numbers, what you've said, we're an export double nation. That's the mantra. All focused on value. We have twice the value of less hectareage than the rest. Now, you're in sales. If you're selling something for twice the price without any investment, what's the natural thing to do? So imagine you're the Prime Minister. Go for it. Imagine you're the Prime Minister. What would be of the 5 priorities and recommendations, what would you prioritize, and what would you do about this demand for export double, more value? How would you go about realizing that, please?
It comes back from, we need more organic producers, we need more scale. So to get that, then what is the easiest and quickest way to do so? It's reduce risk So therefore promote people looking at it as a even if it's just a bit, even if it's just a business opportunity for them, it's still going to help the overall availability of the organic product. And I mean, can we incentivize it, right? As a business, you invest and you hope for a return on investment. That's how business works. So literally an entire continent with the EU Commission, they've attempted to incentivize organic farming, and that's not even really specifically to the potential, I guess, the business side of it. That's just focusing on the environmental benefits, right? So surely, if we want to put the business hat on or the environmental hat on or a bit of both, and even if it's a small incentive, it's just going to raise that awareness and people were going to raise their eyebrows and be like, actually, you know what? And saying that, it's been really cool to see. A couple of weeks ago, Fonterra have really, it sounds like they're really trying to start up their organic milk production down in the South Island. So that's a really good thing to see. As we need more people and more big outfits like that promoting it. So if we can get more people to transition, we need to show them how to do that. We need a transition plan, and we need government to sort of drive that, right? Whether it's incentivize or pay and provide the transitions program. That's probably where I would focus my energy.
Thank you, Matt. Now, everyone, we are going to wrap up there at 1:13. We're closing at 1:15. Hey, Matt, that was great. Thank you very much for your work and your openness and communication. It's really powerful, and people can communicate. They can download your study and communicate with you directly. We'll have that in all the correspondence. And I'm wanting to conclude by just thanking everybody for their attendance. We had up to about 67 was our peak, and we've got 58 at the moment in attendance. And of course, this is going to go wide, so please do share it. For those whose questions we didn't answer, we'll try to pick them up and we'll give them to Matt and be able to communicate with you or through some dialogue. But I also just want to let everybody know that OANZ is starting its campaign for the year. Well, we've obviously started, but we're doing a much more public one. And as I mentioned, ODPG is the sponsor. And we'll be running a dollar for dollar campaign very shortly. And so look out for that. We would really appreciate your assistance so that we can maintain that pressure and make sure that reduce the risk, as Matt was saying, and incentivize and a foot forward. So that's both a defensive and a promotional activity that we do. And we rely on membership and your generosity for our survival and our good work that we've been doing. And many of the people on the call have been part of that. So thanks, everybody. Okay, we're bang on time, 1:15. Thank you very much, Matt. Lou, any wrap up that you want to do from a comms perspective?
I'd just like to say I've had some questions about the recording. I will be sending the recording out with Matt's research on Monday, so you'll all get a copy of that. Any other questions, you can always come back to me on comms@oanz.co.nz. Thank you for coming.
Brilliant, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Brendan. See you, everybody.